Come one, come all. It's time once again to get this underway. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. So glad to have you along for this edition of the Feedback Loop. It's a lovely morning. We got a James sighting. Kara's in here. Eve's in here. Also had a question from Abraham pop in, and actually Abraham is typing right now into Discord. But I'm going to start here with this question Abraham has because so many of you are heading into the realm of freelancing, and it's sometimes difficult to understand where the boundaries are with regard to freelancing. And one of Abraham's questions that came across this morning is, I assume the client owns all rights to the work after it's complete. For example, the client could resell the design at a whim. And typically speaking, when you let's take this as you were doing. Maybe you helped build an app or design an app, or you did some branding or marketing for a new startup. Okay, and then that startup is acquired. All right, and you could really, let's say Monsanto, like some big evil company, or Thankful. But I said big company. Anyway, the point here is if you had if a company came along and acquired the company you'd done the work for, it transfers. Okay, there is no the work reverts to me unless you unless you write that into the contract. Like, if this company is sold, all work reverts to me. And as somebody who's done a lot of work for companies that have been sold, and you really wish it hadn't gone that way, that would have been great to have in a contract. Okay, but if you don't have it in a contract, more than likely, the rights are just going to be transferred along to whoever purchases the company. Also, this applies to companies where, let's say you build a template, okay, and maybe you're one of these designers that works for Canva, and Canva employs a lot of designers who basically you just make templates all day, and the whole value proposition is, you're going to make me a template. As a designer, you're going to make me a template so I can give that template to a non-designer, and they can kind of fill it with stuff, and it'll kind of look okay. It'll look better than it would have had the non-designer just kind of thrown text into a presentation by themselves. But I'm paying you to create templates for me so I can sell them downstream. Another way to look at this is, when I worked at Block, I had a bunch of designers, and I would pay them to create tutorials. All right, and sometimes they would create a tutorial, and it would go into the platform, and there it was. It was property of the company. There was no provision to get that back. Now, one of the things that I hated about that situation was, when you produce work that lives behind a paywall, there are issues with you then showing that work, because obviously that work is behind a paywall. It's kind of like, if you have an NDA with a company, you can't just then go and show that work out in the public. So those are the big concerns that I have. I want to check back in because you had written something else here. That's what you assumed. I want the right to do a case study on it. Do I have to stipulate it? Even if the NDA is signed, can I put it behind a password on my portfolio? And Abraham, that is what most people do. Okay, so if you have a portfolio, or if you have a case study, there's a couple of different ways that you can handle it. One is, obviously, you don't publicly list it on your site, and this is something one of my students did with great effect. She had done some NDA work, and right at the top of her portfolio, like, you're looking at your projects, and it says, here are the projects that I have that are not currently under an NDA agreement. Please contact me if you would like to discuss those projects further. or if you just like to discuss any of my projects further. And the whole point is having something under an NDA is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it actually raises a level of intrigue about the work that you've done, because I see the work that's present, but I'm also curious, well, what's the NDA thing? Is there something more? I think it carries a certain allure. You wouldn't be you're not going to ask a terrible designer to sign an NDA. That's not typically how it works. If I'm going to bother to go through and bring you in and ask you to sign an NDA, you must be decent at what you do, okay? So that's my assumption coming in. I think it's a real benefit to you if you can say, yeah, I've got some work under NDA protection. I think typically you must have worked on something important. Like the level of work must be important. You must be good at what you do. Like there's something there that's required the NDA protection. So for you, Abraham, I think I would push forward, and I would build a case study, obscure it, label clearly on your portfolio that you're showing work, but you're only showing what you can show because you have some work that's under NDA protection. Please contact me, okay? Use it as a hook to pull those people in. But that's my 2 cents on it. I've had students that have had great success doing that, so that's how I would handle it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in, because we've got a number of things that have been turned in, and I'm going to go ahead and start here with Eve. Eve's working through the type specimen type 201 project, and what I want to do is I always want to come through and kind of hide the guides. And thanks again, Eve, for sharing this. One thing that a lot of people, Kara had this question earlier, and it was in regard to typography, because Kara has used types. So Kara is a print designer, okay? So she's got all this badass type available to her. Because when you work in print, you're not using web fonts, all right? You're focused on, hey, I need high quality fonts, and typically I remember I paid thousands of dollars for a set of fonts that we were using at one of the publications I worked at. It actually is it's called Stag, and it's a font that was created for Esquire. That font isn't widely available online. Those fonts can actually be used inside of Figma, and you can share your file with anybody. They just won't be able to edit that area without loading the font on their machine. Okay, so just know, right now we're looking at Eve's page, and this font Gelasso is not loaded on my machine, and it's a font only. She must have it just on her machine. So it is possible this is a Google font that it's just not loaded, or an Adobe font that's just not loaded here. But the bottom line is this: it's showing up correctly. This is Gelasso, but I can't edit it, and that's fine. I'm the whole purpose of this exercise isn't necessarily for me to edit this typography. It's for us to go through and compare typography. And she's done a good job here. Muli, Gelasso, Cormorant. I'm not the best with pronunciation of the typography names, to be completely honest. Open Sans, I got that one. So when we're looking at this, what we see right away is this is a really, really. First of all, it's really old school. The way that this A and E, it has a short X height overall. The counters are very small. This is definitely a typeface that you're either using it large or you're not using it, because if you went small with this typeface, I really think these counters would cause a real problem. Obviously, it opens up a bit in italic. I actually like the italic a lot more than the regular. Now, when we look here, this is gelasso, and gelasio. It's something like that. Anyway, we've got this is really pretty heavy duty typeface. Very thick stroke, just all around, even in this regular weight. Muli, very even stroke throughout. Uh, very little contrast in the stroke. Maybe just here a little bit at the rounding of the G and the A coming out of that corner, or that out of that counter corner. I said corner, but it's counter. So a nice typeface overall. I really like the range that this has in it, going from extra light to black, and you can kind of see how that presents itself. Extra light doesn't work very well small, but this regular does. But extra light does work really well larger. So there's something there. Medium here is just too heavy, but all of these are really nice. Not shabby on the headline here, but as you get into paragraph, you can just see that's not really legible. And the one we haven't looked at really is Open Sans. And one thing I was wanting to point out while we're here is notice that the A in an italic is always the larger counter. So here in the Muli, it starts off as a larger counter, but here it's got the smaller with the hook. Same thing here, but they all, when they go to italics, go to the larger counter, or the single counter. So I've always thought that was pretty interesting about italics. Is some of the, there is no italic for this style of an A. It just doesn't exist. So as we come through, Open Sans, I gotta say, I really like the range on Muli. If I was picking between Muli and Open Sans, there's a lot that's going to push me toward Muli, mainly because I really just like it's not as condensed. It has a pretty nice counter on it, but I like the range. When we get down here, I do think that I like Open Sans as a paragraph style, probably more so than Muli, because it's going to be I'm going to get a little bit more in there because it's just slightly condensed on the width by comparison. But let's see what you've done. So good range there, Eve. And there is really no wrong way to do this. The one thing that we're always looking for is, did we adjust, the ascenders and the cap height and the X height and the baseline? Did we adjust all of that? And it looks like overall you did. It's interesting to see, like, the ascenders here on Gelasso. It appears like they're not quite even. So like the F comes up just a little higher than the K. I also like these are weird little angular pieces. Normally these would just round off these ears. Like here, what you see here. So it's like, again, like the little inconsistencies are interesting to me as we go through. Here, very old style. You can almost feel the pen coming up and making the final note there. This is a bit squared off. I would, if I was drawing this with a pen, but then you look here and it just, you can just feel like somebody took a pen or a brush and then came back down. So this has a lot. Same thing here. This has a lot of very old school, humanist Like it feels like somebody made this by hand. It's not geometric at all by comparison with this. This is very geometric. And yeah, it's lovely though. The E is interesting to me. The E is so rounded by comparison when you go into italic from just the regular presentation. So anyway, let's go over here and see what you did with it. And yes, you folks already know this. I'm a type nerd. I like type. It's fun. So Eve, I like this. You threw in a little baseline grid. That's nice. So here, you've paired Gelasso with Muli. X heights are very close to one another. Both fonts have similar O's. And they complement each other's rounded features. I think that this is a logical combination. Yeah, I think this matches what I'm often going toward when it comes down to I'm looking for contrast but similarity. I want this is the simplest of contrast. I've got a serif and a sans serif, okay? You've also contrasted weights a bit, which is fine. But in terms of like contrast, it's the simplest of the contrasts. It's I guess the simplest of the contrasts would be like weight inside of the same typeface, but I digress. This is the more traditional contrast that we see. Here, you've gone with a sans serif, and then a serif. So you've kind of flipped the dynamic to where you're using the sans serif larger and then the serif smaller, and so their X heights are not very close. You paired Open Sans and Gelasso. I don't know. Are their X heights that far apart? But you chose them because they have similar foundations. Letters such as T, K, Y, and G. So let's look at this. The T's are very similar. Look at that. T's. He said K's. So let's find a couple of K's. Okay, so there's a K. And yeah, that does have a, like when you look at this, you see the leg of the K comes up. It does not go to the vertical stem. It comes up and it stops midstream. Same thing down here. That's a very good eye there. And T, K, Y, and G. I always like the G. So yeah, it's like got the double counter G, the classic G, in my opinion. Although we don't really see the G here, I guess we've got to go back over here to Muli to. Although Muli doesn't have the double G, or is this Open Sans? I gotta check again. I think this was Open Sans. Oh yeah, it's Open Sans. I'm comparing the wrong ones. And yes, you're right. Open Sans does have the double G, which is nice. I think that similar structure, when you have similar structure, it makes it just a lot easier to pair. So good pairing here. Let's continue looking down. So, Taco John. So you went with a slightly smaller width here, and that's ideal. We will be, we do typically deal with this in smaller constraints for these labels or cards. I am going to be adjusting and it's such a struggle. When we get into interface design and we're talking about typography, it's such a struggle to determine where the line is. Like what we, even I talked about this, about constraining this portion. You'll see Kara just naturally did it. No, we didn't have a conversation about it at all, but I think it lends more, I believe, to the fact that she has a background and that's more stronger in typography. And complete fairness, Eve, I think you've done very well for somebody who's coming to this without a background in design, particularly graphic design. I really think that you've done a good job of really focusing in on what was in the lesson, the videos and the pairing. for those watching this, there is a pairing tutorial that I actually put on Instagram. It's in a story form. I was experimenting around with Instagram, and I feel like you took a lot of those layerings of how to put contrast together. I see a lot of that here, but we've paired Open Sans and Cormorant because they have similar X heights. I'm not crazy about the Cormorant. That's not to say that it's wrong. You have met the criteria of pairing. Like, you've used it properly. Okay, so it's larger, and you've come through here and you've layered in some usage of bold, and you've got the ital in there. I just think of the typefaces that you have, Cormorant was the weaker of the ones in the selection. So I think overall I just don't like that typeface, and there'll be times where we're just going to disagree on the typefaces that we've chosen, and yeah, I think this is one of those times. That doesn't mean it's wrong, and I'm not going to ask anybody to go back and fix this because there's nothing to fix. Now we're getting into the area of opinion. I don't care for that typeface because it feels so old school. And when I think of this, I'm thinking about, this is probably used as a listing on like a Grubhub or a Seamless, or it's on some sort of mapping presentation, and I just wouldn't see that typeface used there. But so far as pairing, yeah, you've paired them. What I would actually like to see in these instances is probably a condensed or expanded sans serif, something that felt a bit more modern, rather than the common pairing of a serif and a sans serif. I would actually go for two sans serifs that have different structural. They're different on a structural level, not a serif and a sans serif that are similar on a structural level. So, just a bit of opinion there. I think overall you've done pretty well, though. This is pretty strong work overall, and I do like your selections overall. I do like the range of your selections. I'm just not sure that I would have pulled this one out. I think I would have gone with, if I was going to go with a serif, I would have gone with a gelasso there, but I probably would have gone with two sans serifs. But your sans serifs are so similar in structure that you really can't use them together. Okay, so it's like you would have to use all Open Sans or all Mooly, and then you're basically just making variations on the weight. And what you'll find, for instance, Apple, they have San Francisco is the font that they use on a lot of their apps and whatnot. And they use it's just one typeface, and it's just, I'm going to use weight all the way through, and that's fine. Weight and size, you can do a lot with that, but it's a lot more interesting, particularly when you get into the presentation of story and when you get into this sort of combination of pairing, which I think is more interesting. All right, so good job there. Let's go ahead and jump over to James, who, we've seen James's work here on priority guides. So he's gone through, and now he's layering in where microcopy would exist. So he renamed this plate pass, and that's not really, well, no, actually it's a plate pass up there. Clean up to verify move CTA button down for reachability and space. changed view to explore to elicit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean there by reachability in space. This is going to scroll, unless you're saying that in the final design this is going to like stick to the bottom. I don't necessarily know if that matters, but I do like the idea of explore. Like, come look around. It means the same thing as view, but I will say this: I think view is overused. Okay. I've probably used view on the new Pragmatic site, to be completely honest with you. But I always think that anytime that you can use a phrase that means something similar, but it's more aspirational. View is just like, go look at this. Explore is like, wow, it's vast and it's there's all these options. You don't explore something that has like 3 things listed, which you can view 3 things listed, but explore sounds so much more expansive. So I like that a lot. Clarified message, reduced number of so we talked about that. CTA text for this button changes depending on the category. So if I selected something here, this would just update, I'm guessing. Plate plus, clarified membership and benefits, FAQ. Okay, so overall not bad. I'm microcopy, I'm more interested in what's happening over here. Reworded allergy diet. Okay, so this is about the filters, and that's fine. That is a bit of microcopy streamlining. Cleaned up copy and added ingredient. Okay, so this, you need at least X of X to order this dish. Okay, that is the microcopy I'm looking for. I'm looking for helpful text that arrives at the right time, that isn't always on screen, that's going to help the user along. That's the microcopy I'm looking for, James. And what's hard about microcopy is until you know until you know the product well enough, it's very difficult to know when to inject a notification, a helpful message, something to help people move along. This is exactly the spot where you would have to inject that message in the right at the right time. So at least 3 meals are required. Please add additional meal to complete order. That's like, so what I'm seeing here is I've got maybe 2 meals, and maybe there's one that's not displayed. So this alert would come up. Add additional meals to order. Edit frequency. Choose pause duration. Are you sure you want the cancel? So if I clicked pause recurring order, I would probably get something that says choose pause duration. If I said edit delivery frequency, I'm going to get choose delivery frequency. It's probably some sort of pop-up. If I say cancel, I'm getting this is now a some sort of confirmation, or you're trying to stop a destructive action. Okay, so are you sure you want to do this? And I think those things are helpful. Like, a lot of people are like, I just told you I wanted to do it, but this affordance is protecting people against accidental clicks. Okay, that's the whole thing. I never want to talk somebody. If somebody wants to cancel, they want to cancel, and that's fine. What I want you always doing is focusing on, hey, I'm just wanting to confirm that you didn't accidentally click this. So what I want to encourage you to do is, not shame people into not canceling. Like, here, I think this is fine. Are you sure you want to cancel? You can also pause. That's, you did you know you can also pause an order? Yes, I want to cancel. No, I'd like to pause. Or they can exit. They can hit X and get out of the whole thing. Um, so what I don't want to get into is, are you sure you want to cancel? Yes, I want. Yes, I am no longer interested in losing weight or whatever. Or no, I want. No, I want to stay healthy and fit. It's like I hate that. That the comfort shaming is the worst. So I'm glad to see that you're trying to nudge them back into, you could just pause if you want to, but you're not shaming them by saying, "Oh, you just like being fat," Anyway, um, let's continue looking at this. Are you sure? Yes, no. Are you sure? Sorry, we're unable to deliver to that address. That's good. Yeah, overall these are pretty good. Sorry, there are no pickup location changed. So overall, and what you're probably picking up on, and if you're watching this, what you're probably picking up on is that so many of these so many of these microcopy updates are further down the chain. They are where interaction is required to build an order. Okay? They're not on a marketing page because nothing's really happening on the marketing page. Like, you're throwing information at the person, and yeah, a lot of this looks like messages, but it's not. I mean, it's like you're actually just saying, I clarified this message, and that's fine, but that's not microcopy. The microcopy is happening down here, and, your order has been received, your order was finished packing, your order is quality checked, your order has been delivered. So this is the messaging that goes along with reporting back to the user what's happening. And I really think that's what feedback is. That's what microcopy is supposed to do. All right. So good job there. I do want to check this out. Invalid. Email changed. Passwords do not match. Password changed. Are you sure you want to delete home? Invalid address. Home address changed. Are you sure you want to delete? Payment method is invalid. Yeah. This is good. James. I was a little concerned over here, but I really think that the layering, because again, I didn't. It's because you didn't put it off to the side like you when you started, you had all the stuff off to the side, and I was like, well, wait, did he only do the front page? Because back here I can see the front page and I can see a couple of things, but over here it didn't look like there was anything. And in fact, there's lots of stuff here, so that's great. Good job. I really think that you're in a great spot. Sketching. Let's get into sketching, and then we should have a call, James, determining, all right, so are you going to worry about the wireframing and prototype, or are you going to just go into interaction so that you can then circle back to wireframing and prototype? Because remember, a lot of people didn't have the interaction material before wireframing and prototype. But I don't know. I like wireframing and prototyping and testing and doing all that before we dive into interaction. So, we can talk more about that. But overall, I think you're in a good spot to begin sketching out what the interface, initial versions of the interface are going to look like. Let's jump over to Kara. So Kara again shared a lot of typefaces with us. I am going to review and instead of edit, because I really don't think we have a lot to edit for Kara. She's really done a good job in selecting some high quality fonts. So Bryant Pro, Mercury Text, Gotham, if you've ever seen, Gotham takes us right back to the Obama 2008-2012 campaign, and Jubilat. I'm guessing that's how it. Boy, that is a beautiful font, though. Just gorgeous. I love the little hook on the K and the italic. Like this is lovely stuff. Um, Great X height, really on all of these. Um, Nice open counters here on Gotham. There's a reason why it's one of the more popular typefaces in the world, or at least it was. Gotham actually got to a point where it was just too popular. It was like it's too. It's like Helvetica. It's like too much of it. It like had a backlash. Um, Mercury Text. We've seen this one time and again. And Bryant Pro is interesting. It has these the lower counter on this A, and oh wow, look at that. That's one of the rare old school A's that I've ever seen in an italic. Like again, oh, I guess Gotham does the same. I did not realize Gotham did that in an italic. That's really interesting. So there I was saying you just never see it, and Kara brings two. Just shows you what you can discover when you're looking at type specimens. And I really think that as we get into this, and I want to turn that off so we can just kind of see it. When we're working through type specimens, I think we have an opportunity to look at typography that we probably haven't studied as closely. We've all seen Gotham, but have I really seen Gotham used in an italic before? Have I paid much attention to it? No. So this specimen is helpful for really all involved. I love the range on Gotham. That's one of the reasons why it's so popular. You can look at it. It's great, large. It's fantastic, small. The Jubilat is just gorgeous. I really like the heavyweight on the headline. I like the regular on the paragraph, although I probably like it like areas like this, it's just so close together. I think at a small size, I'd probably actually have to, like, I know we've talked about letter spacing and coming in. I'd probably have to go out, which I hate because I feel like now I'm injecting air into it. But it almost feels like you've had to do the same thing here as well. And yeah, you have. It's like 3%. And this is what I was talking about when I was talking about, you can share your typography. You can share your typography, regardless of what the typeface is, through Figma. But I just can't edit it, which is fine. So here we are. This is Mercury Text. Mercury Text is going to always work fantastic. What's interesting though is this is Mercury Text, which means Mercury Text is really intended for the paragraph usage. It's not really meant for headline uses. There will be Mercury Display. So this is one of those situations where there's a larger family and it's Mercury Display that should be considered for these larger usages, and then Mercury Text should be utilized for these smaller usage. But Mercury Text in a paragraph form just works fantastic. And then we have Bryant Pro, really gorgeous typeface. Way too light. Here works okay as a regular, but a lot of versatility in that. With a very, there's only 8 weights to it. Actually 4 and 4, but there's 8 variations. Each of these fits the bill. Mercury Text just because, again, the presence of the word text means I can't use it for a display, or I shouldn't use it for a display. I should utilize the display weight of Mercury, and these are just a lot of options. So let's take a look at this. So audio. So you gave me a couple of different options here. I'm really interested in what's going on. All right. So here's a few things. I really think that this is working better. Um, and let's see, this is, well, I don't want to get into, I guess this is a single, text block. I like the darker label, the darker headline. That's Jubilat. I think that, again, this is intended to be a headline. This is not. So that's why this second one is just starting off on such a better footing to begin with. Love the usage here. I just really like the combination of that serif label with a sans serif headline. Either of these are really modern. I like the fact that you took the extra step and said, "Oh, this subscribe thing, it's going to be a button." So you've put some trappings around that to trigger a subscription link. If anything, this is getting pretty light. So I'd like to take a look at it in like one step up, but I also like the contrast here between the really bold and the light. So there's a couple of different ways I might look at this. I might look at this as a larger size. I might look at this with a little more line height. I might look at it as one step up in terms of weight. But either of these work very well. There is, I know this is Bryant, and there's something really nice about the rounded features of that with the serif. It's not traditionally what I feel like I would be drawn to, but I like the different. I appreciate it. And then here we are, Taco John, and I like the light use of a line to kind of indicate, hey, this label is here. Really like the usage here, and this is so different from I believe it was Cormorant that we had before. You've injected a little color here. This feels like, honestly, this feels like something how you would see something presented in an Esquire. It doesn't feel or like as a featured card on a application. It doesn't feel old at all. It feels designed. But again, we're playing into your strength, Kara. You've been doing publication design for a long time. What I'm really interested in is when we get into information design and then into color and into forms and into feedback, as we begin taking your traditional strength and then saying, okay, now your design has to react to somebody. That's what I'm interested in. But that's what I'm interested in seeing with your growth. You clearly know how to pair typography together. It's very nicely done. And you brought some other elements in, like you've introduced color here before we've talked about color. You've introduced the buttons in here before we talked about buttons and forms. But overall, I think this is really strong. So yeah, I'd carry forth. And again, the other thing I want you to know is, like, if you decide to use typography that's on your own machine and you're sharing that via Figma, the other party can see that. Okay, they can see it. They just can't edit it. And if you're working on a project, you're not going to have like 100 fonts. You're going to have like 2. All right. So make sure that your coworkers have those, so that if you're working together on a project, they can just open the file and edit. But if it's a client, you can just send that to them, and it won't be an issue. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up here. Really great work overall. Great work all week long. Give yourselves a hand. I've seen a lot of great stuff this week, and I'm super excited to see what the rest. I'm super excited to see how how you folks jump out of the weekend. Weekends are always interesting. Monday morning it can be a tidal wave or crickets. Tidal wave or crickets. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be next Monday? I look forward to finding out. So without further ado, I'm Chris Courtney for New Pragmatic. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I will see you again on Monday. Take care.